In this video, we are going to take a look at learning simple interest, and this is a three-part series. This first part is going to focus on learning the definitions and the formula that go along with simple interest. So first, a look at the formula. The formula is represented by the equation I is equal to P R T. In this equation, I represents interest, P represents principal, R represents rate, and T represents time. On the next slide, we're going to take a little bit more in-depth look at each of these and develop definitions for each of these things. So first is our interest. Interest is the dollar amount of money you earn on your savings or your investment. So this is when you put money into a savings account, the money that you earn from the bank for putting it into that account, that is your interest. Principal. This is represented by the letter P in our equation. So once again, our equation is I is equal to P R T. So P stands for principal. Principal is the initial amount saved or deposited. This is your starting amount. This is how much you put into the account from the very beginning. Interest rate. The interest rate is the percentage paid to you for your savings. This is always stated in an annual term. So it's either an APR, which is annual percentage rate, or APY, which is annual percentage yield. T is time. Time represents the length of time that you keep your money in an account. This is always represented in years. So, for example, if they tell you that it's in the account for 6 months, well, we need to make sure that we convert that to years. 6 months is going to represent half of a year, or 0.5 years. Going back to interest rate, we need to make sure that we either use the percentage button on our calculator or we change it to decimal form. So for example, if I said something was at 2.5%, we need to convert that to decimal form. And to do that, we take our decimal point and move it over 2 places to the left. So this would actually be 0.025 is equivalent to 2.5%. So now for an example, find the interest when you place $1,000 in a savings account that earns 3% for 2 years. So I always stress starting off with your equation first. I is equal to P times R times T. Now from here we work our way down, plugging in the values that we know. So I'm looking to find the interest. So since that's my unknown, I'm going to leave that as the letter I. P is my principal. That's how much I start with, which in this case is $1,000. R is my rate. So my rate in this case is 3%. And as a decimal, that's going to be 0.03 because our decimal point is currently here. We move it 2 places to the left, which gives us 0.03. So that's going to go in here. And then our time in years is 2. So from here, we plug these numbers into our calculator, and these operations here, this is all multiplication in between these numbers. So this is 1,000 times 0.03 times 2, which gives us I is equal to $60. So if we were to put $1,000 in a savings account that earns 3% for 2 years, the interest we would earn back from that would be $60. In our second example, find the interest when you place $500 in a savings account that earns 1.5% for 3 years. So once again, start off with your formula. I is equal to PRT. Since I'm trying to find the interest, I is my unknown. I'm going to leave that as I. I place $500 in the account, so that is my principal. My rate is 1.5%, which is the same thing as 1.5%. So now to convert that to a decimal, I would move this decimal point over 2 places, which ends up being 0.015 is my rate. And then my time in years is 3. So now I can plug this into my calculator, 500 times 0.015 times 3. And we end up with I is equal to $22.50. And on my calculator, it actually said 22.5. We just have to recognize that we're working with money, so we wouldn't write that as 22.5. We would write it as $22.50. 50 cents. We would put the 0 on the end there. And our last example here, find the simple interest when you place $500 in a savings account that earns 1.75% for 3 years. So once again, we start with our equation. I is equal to P times R times T. I'm looking to find the simple interest, so I is my unknown. They haven't given us that. My principal is my starting value, which in this case is going to be 500. My rate, 1.75%. We need to change that to a decimal, so this would move over 2 places. So that ends up actually being 0.0175. And then our time is in years. They've already told us it's 3 years, so we'll put that in here. Now we multiply that with our calculator, so 500 times 0.0175 times 3. And that gets us I is equal to 26.25, which means $26.25 is how much interest we have earned by placing that amount of money in an account for 3 years at 1.75%. Now I will say I converted all these to decimals. I know some people prefer to just put 1.75 and use the percentage button on your calculator when you're figuring the rate. That's fine. That's another way that you can do it.